Welcome to another episode of Word and Story, Prayer and Song. It's Tuesday, March 24th. And if yesterday's video was a little holy hilarity, today's will be solemn remembrance. I often mention the front pages of our book of worship, Evangelical Lutheran Worship. And these pages in the front, pages 15 to 17, on those pages you'll find a list of some special events in the life of our faith, but a lot of special people are named in this list. You can call them saints if you want to, just so long as you also use that title for yourself. These are not perfect people, but they are people that we have identified in this list who demonstrated a life of faith and faithfulness in whatever walk of life or vocation they found themselves, faithful to God in different ways. So, for example, on July 28th, you will see the name of Johann Sebastian Bach. God gave him some musical gifts, I've heard. Later in the year, on April 13th, is the name of Florence Nightingale. And on that goes. Why do I mention all this? Well, first of all, I find it interesting to read through those names. It's a little bit like walking through a cemetery, if one likes to do that, and look at the names and the dates and the very brief descriptions of who that person was. That's kind of what this is like. But more importantly, I mention it because today, March 24th, is the day that we remember in our calendar of remembrance Archbishop Oscar Romero, who was martyred on this date back in 1980. More about him in a moment, but first, this word from John chapter 15. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. And that reminds me of a story.
Saint Oscar Arnolfo Romero y Galdames, first canonized saint of El Salvador, was born August 15, 1917. After just a few years of schooling and home tutoring, the young Romero took apprenticeship to learn carpentry, showing talent for the trade. But the boy, one of 8 siblings, felt called to priesthood and entered minor seminary at age 13. Post-ordination, Romero served as pastor in San Miguel, caring for the poor and imprisoned of his area, and those with alcohol addictions. Inspired by Opus Dei spirituality, he also drew others to a special devotion for his country's patroness, Our Lady, Queen of Peace. He trusted in her intercession as civil war erupted across the land. After a fellow priest and friend was assassinated for his work with the poor, Romero wrote, "If they have killed him for what he did, then I, too, have to walk the same path." As bishop and then archbishop in San Salvador, Romero took to the airwaves, broadcasting weekly homilies and talks that highlighted injustice in his land. There have been threats, arrests, tortures, murders, numbering in the hundreds and thousands he grieved, about the faithful, religious, and priests being persecuted by extremists. His broadcasts were the only means by which citizens could receive uncensored news about the atrocities against the church. On March 24, 1980, a driver halted at the chapel of the Divine Providence Hospital where Archbishop Romero was celebrating Mass. The gunman fired one fatal bullet, making the beloved Archbishop a 20th century martyr. In 1997, Pope John Paul II bestowed upon Romero the title Servant of God, opening up his cause for beatification. When momentum stalled, Pope Benedict XVI reopened the cause for Archbishop Romero in 2012. Pope Francis declared him a martyr on February 3, 2015. The most profound social revolution, once wrote the saint, is the serious, supernatural, interior reform of a Christian. Saint Archbishop Oscar Romero, pray for us.
I know that it's possible that many of us have read those words before and we kind of read through them quickly and think to ourselves, they sound nice, they sound important. I think if we slow down and let them sink in, we might be led to ask ourselves, would I really die for somebody else? And if that starts to sink in too deeply, we speed up and move on to some other easier thought. You've just clearly seen in the video about him how one man, Oscar Romero, pondered the meaning of those words and did not run away. There was also something about that video that caught my attention at the very, very end. It was the last words of the video that you heard and saw. Pray for us. It reminded me of the Ave Maria, or in English, the Hail Mary. To many Lutherans, especially if you were born a Lutheran and always have been a Lutheran, like me, the first thought you had when you heard the words Hail Mary, and no, I'm not talking about a football play, I'm thinking of Lutherans who would automatically think, oh, that's Catholic. And since Catholics do it, Lutherans aren't supposed to. Well, what we've often done is confuse praying to the saints, which is something we don't do in our tradition. We've confused praying to the saints with asking the saints to pray for us. That's a very different thing. I'm sure that if I asked you to pray for me, you would, and I know you do already. If you asked me to pray for you, I would, and I do already. We all know ourselves to be, I hope you know yourself to be part of what we call the communion of saints, or what the book of Hebrews calls the great cloud of witnesses. So I personally, and this is my opinion, I'll share it that way, I don't see any difference between asking you, a member of the communion of saints who happens to live on earth, to pray for me, and asking one of the saints who has gone to glory and is part of that part of the communion of saints to pray for me. For me, it's the same thing. So the Ave Maria, while it may have a Catholic feel to it, is something that we could pray, because we're not praying to Mary, we're asking her to pray for us. That being said, today our prayer and our song are one and the same. And it is the Bach Gounod Ave Maria, played by Anna Kiko Myers on the violin and Rico Uchida on piano. I have one pretty cool piece of news to report. I just learned that Augsburg Fortress is making available a free email subscription to Christ in Our Home for those who like to use that devotional, because you can't go to church right now and get it. So below this video is a picture of the screenshot and a link below that to the order form so that you could take advantage of this free offer. I think it extends through the month of April at least. Otherwise, not a lot of news to report in and around Trinity, of course. I'm sure you're getting your fill, perhaps, of news from all the sources that you use. We had our first virtual office yesterday. I had it open for a couple hours, had a couple of visitors, a little bit of time to chat. So if you'd like to check in, use the email link that I sent last Sunday. If you didn't get it, email me and I'll send it to you. And we'll keep doing that for this week and see what the demand is, and then we'll go from there. So, as always, until tomorrow, be safe, be well, and peace be with you.